Welcome to Design Frame, a series of game design case studies for designers and players alike. Western Edition. I'm on a 2nd edition horse with only a 1st edition lasso, but I don't have enough credits to buy a lasso loot crate, so I'll include my OnlyFans in the description to raise money for a good cause. But see, even though as a gamer I'm obligated to buy loot crates, I'd rather have control over the lassos I have stored in my closet. Luckily, that's also where I found a copy of Control, the visually pleasing game developed by Remedy Entertainment that pits players against the all-powerful Hiss in an semblance of satisfying combat and missions which contribute to the entertaining world building and story development. Control's gameplay features your typical selection of main missions and side missions, in addition to special timed missions called Bureau Alerts that focus solely on combat. While the main missions combine the best of Control's parts, both Bureau Alerts and some of the side missions leave us with disjunct combat that at best bloats the game and artificially extends playtime. Shortly after Control's release, Remedy introduced a more fleshed out post-game combat mode called Expeditions that had every right to replace Bureau Alerts, but unfortunately it also ended up bloating Control and its playtime. Bureau Alerts are infinitely recurring, randomly generated Hiss combat encounters of a higher difficulty than the typical encounter. Despite the implementation of additional combat, which is one of Control's strong points, we all love smacking some Hiss faces, Remedy's implementation of Bureau Alerts pads the game's playtime due to its repetitious disjunct combat, its lack of identity, world building, and story immersion, and the addition of more lengthy load screens. I cannot deny that Bureau Alerts provide additional opportunities to smack his face. We all love a good old face smacking, as my daddy used to say, but after a while, repetition starts to wear you down. Bureau Alerts offer additional face smacking combat without any meaningful twist or purpose in a game already filled to the brim with combat. So before you know it, the game is actually smacking you in the face with its dull repetition. Bureau Alerts focus entirely on combat, leaving out the engaging exploration and story opportunities found in the main missions and often in the side missions. Side missions encourage players to explore old and even new areas to discover secrets and additional lore and story not found in the main missions. With Bureau Alerts' focus on combat, areas that other missions would celebrate and use to create interesting world building are reduced into combat arenas. These combat arenas are so disjunct from Control's world building and exploration that their only purpose is to satisfy these small subset of players yearning for more difficult endgame content before confronting the final boss. Therefore, they shouldn't interrupt the game's main engaging content with loud and proud sirens. Bureau Alerts are optional, but if they were supposed to come across as optional, they shouldn't be so annoying. They also should not promote the subpar Bureau Alert experience during the game when you can obtain the whole package in the main and side missions instead. Additionally, Bureau Alerts add an obscene amount of load screen time to the game. When I first encountered an alert, I thought, oh, I haven't seen these missions before, I better go try it out before the 20-minute timer expires. But lo and behold, my excitement died as I languished in the loading screens and emerged an old man. I quickly learned that the typical alert experience devolves into a series of load screens plagued by lengthy load times. We incur the first load screen when we teleport to the alert location, and it lasts an incredibly long minute plus. The potential second load screen appears if you die against the much higher difficulty enemies for another minute plus. Finally, we're introduced to the third load screen when we teleport back to the main mission, and it lasts another minute plus. Even if the alerts were instead a fantastic experience that was unlike anything else in the game, 3+ minutes of load screen within a span of 5 or so minutes will at best sour the experience and at worst derail it entirely. To give Remedy the benefit of the doubt, I researched the loading time issue and discovered that some people encounter super short load times while others super long load times. Supposedly, a tried and true solution is to use DirectX 12 instead of the default DirectX 11 at the cost of potential texture issues. Another tried and true solution is to wait until the loading bar pauses, then Alt-Tab out of the game and Alt-Tab back in. I sympathize with Remedy because whatever is going on with the inconsistent load times cannot be an easy problem to fix, but I'm also baffled that I have to Alt-Tab to fix a loading problem with the game. They have not fixed the bug in the 2 years it's been on PC and have instead released 2 expansions and an Ultimate Edition, so we certainly cannot and should not ignore a bug that has and will ruin players' experiences with the game. I cannot tell you the number of times I almost uninstalled the game due to the insane loading times. Overall, players will either spend too much time on bureau alerts or ignore them completely, neither result intended by Remedy, because the load screens take players out of the game, slowing down momentum and therefore fun, and because additional combat does not add anything meaningful to the already combat-heavy experience. Aside from bureau alerts, many side missions also serve no other purpose than to artificially extend playtime. They do not introduce players to new areas, mechanics, bosses, characters, or anything else of interest. For example, the Janitor and Langston side missions. Janitor and Langston enjoy sending you out with cumbersome checklists of pointless tasks that you must laboriously check off individually, one at a time. On the other hand, some side missions encourage exploration and secret hunting of rooms we may not have explored otherwise, and other side missions offer special surprises like hidden boss fights that open up additional story threads. Despite these interesting and engaging side missions, the overall side mission quality is so inconsistent that players are likely to get a sour taste in their mouths and decide to forego the rest of them, thereby missing out on the good ones. To summarize the bureau alerts and side missions, Remedy created unnecessary content in its bureau alerts and some side missions that did not complement Control's strengths, and instead bloated the game with awful load times, disjunct combat, and an overall lack of identity that weighs down and buries the interesting and engaging main and side missions. December 13th, 2019, less than 4 months after Control's release, Remedy attempted to design additional content for more combat through a new game mode called Expeditions. Expeditions is a more fleshed out post-game combat mode that had every right to replace bureau alerts, but unfortunately it also fell flat on its face due to the Jukebox Token system, and now it only serves to artificially extend Control's playtime, just like bureau alerts. According to Remedy, Expeditions is a challenging combat experience with a set time limit for completion aimed at those who have already completed Control. The Expeditions mode has 3 tiers of difficulty unlocked sequentially. Every Expedition tier comes with different random modifiers that can affect both the enemies and yourself. Once you're in, you have 25 minutes to complete 4 different arenas. If you die, you lose progress in the current arena. If you run out of time, you lose. Successfully completing an expedition gives you powerful rewards, such as exclusive weapon mods that you can only get by playing this mode, rare crafting materials, and even a new outfit. There are several reasons why Expeditions is a much better fit for Control than bureau alerts. Expeditions has a much more defined identity that does not interfere or take away from the main and side missions. Both Expeditions and bureau alerts offer additional challenging combat, but Expeditions is relegated to its own mode intended as end-game content. Consequently, players are much less likely to burn out on combat through Expeditions before finishing the main story, because Expeditions is end-game content while bureau alerts occur throughout the entire game. Expeditions also doesn't annoy the player with semi-frequent alarms. Beep beep. Additionally, Expeditions provides a sense of progression through the 3 tiers of ascending difficulty that unlock sequentially. Players can also try to beat their high scores from past expeditions. Finally, Expeditions reward players with theoretically meaningful rewards through exclusive weapon mods and an outfit. Bureau Alerts, on the other hand, reward players with materials that you can collect from just playing through the more engaging main and side missions. Expeditions is an excellent new mode that should have entirely replaced Bureau Alerts from the beginning because it offers a series of challenges for players yearning for more difficult combat in the endgame without hurting players' experiences who don't want additional challenges. However, Expeditions' Jukebox Token system ruins what would have otherwise been a worthwhile Bureau Alert replacement. For each expedition you attempt, you must pay a number of Jukebox Tokens based on the tier. So what happens when a player runs out of Jukebox Tokens? You have to grind them out by completing randomly generated achievements and, you guessed it, Bureau Alerts. There's simply no reason to lock an endgame challenge mode behind a tedious 30+ minute grind every time a player wants to even attempt it. Remedy may have locked Expeditions behind Jukebox Tokens to ensure players could not abuse the mode's exclusive powerful weapon mods to make the main story's final area too easy. But if players go through the trouble of practicing and mastering the combat to complete the optional endgame challenges, then they should be rewarded with something meaningful. Even if the reward reduces the challenge of the remaining endgame, it would contribute to an engaging power spike without trivializing the game's difficulty and would not overstay its welcome since the game is about to end. Remedy could have also just locked Expeditions behind completing the main story, but then the exclusive weapon mods would not see any use during the main story. Players who particularly enjoy the game might still play the challenge mode to test themselves and improve, but unless the game has enough depth and a big enough skill ceiling, endgame content becomes meaningless post-game after completing the main story. While Control's combat is entertaining, visually pleasing, and deep enough to never outstay its welcome in the main missions, it does not have a big enough skill ceiling to justify post-game combat arenas. Either way, as of now, the Expeditions mode is not the proper Bureau Alert replacement it should have been. It's simply not worth the investment of grinding out Jukebox Tokens. The Expeditions' Jukebox Tokens is a strange time sink mechanic in a non-mobile game without microtransactions designed to, again, artificially extend Control's playtime, which is a tried and true Remedy pattern we've seen throughout Control in its Bureau Alerts, side missions, and now Expeditions. I'm sorry, I can't end there because Expeditions is really just as bad as Bureau Alerts. Because of the timer and the 3 of the 4 arenas' focus on completing non-combat objectives, Expeditions all but forces a passive playstyle where players ignore most of the enemies so that there's enough leftover time to complete the expedition. Enemies only become a notable factor in the 4th arena where you have to slaughter waves of enemies to complete the objective. Additionally, every expedition features the same 4 arenas. Therefore, each and every expedition attempt plays the exact same way with only slight variations in objective placement that can quickly be memorized. Some random modifiers force us to abandon weapons altogether, so it simplifies and reduces the already sparse combat into throwing objects at enemies repeatedly until you can seize them. Each arena consumes unnecessary time from our clock through a very slow trek across a chasm from and to the central spawn platform. Overall, Expeditions is a very repetitious and tedious mode. If you'd like to see more game design videos, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the bell, and help me battle the YouTube algorithm by liking and commenting. You can find more game design commentaries and case studies on the channel. There's been a hiatus on the channel due to a couple of recent cross-country moves and life events, a full-time job, and I'm also designing a game on the side. However, you can still expect to see the same high-quality content released on this channel, along with a new commentary series that will allow me to release additional game design content that I wouldn't have time for otherwise. My Patreon is on a per-video basis, so if you want to support me, you won't be charged for months that I'm unable to release videos. I appreciate every viewer and comment regardless, so thank you very much for your time.